The Chargers are far away from where they need to be to become a perfect team, and they have a lot of things you could question, but one thing you cannot question is who they hired as head coach, because Jim Harbaugh has been a massive success.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the Chargers ownership finally did what we all clamored for them to do, which was break out the checkbook and write a massive check to an established head coach. And what do you know? It worked out, at least up to this point. Jim Harbaugh has been an absolute sensation for the Chargers. And is Justin Herbert not being aggressive enough? The answer might surprise you. And what do the Chargers have to do to be able to get things going on offense? Who can they lean on? With Ladd McConkey a little banged up, with J.K. Dobbins on IR, it's got to be the Gus Bus.
Yeah, I think that you have to, and man, honestly, he might be playing for his job right now, and this might be kind of the platform that he needs to show that he should be back in 2025 and potentially beyond that. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start your season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, it is our Chargers mailbag today, getting into your guys' questions. We always want to know what you guys want us to talk about, and today we got some voicemails at 323-524-7924, and also everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter. But David, the first one we have here brings up a great question. I think it's a great chance for us to shed a little bit of positivity, because we always want what's best for this team. If this team struggles, we're going to talk about what we think they need to do to get better. But maybe what can get lost in that is how good they already have, because right now I don't know who has it better than us.
Hey, Dan. Hey, David. It's Ian calling in from Minnesota, longtime everydayer. I want to get your guys' opinion. We've had Jim Harbaugh for almost the full season now, and I want a number 1 through 100 on how impressed you've been so far with him. I think I'm somewhere in the low 90s. The only thing I could really see is some game management stuff. When to use timeouts, when to use challenges. But I couldn't be happier with the culture he's brought to the team and the winning mentality the Chargers have right now. I think they're absolutely on the right track. What do you guys think? Bolt up.
Thank you, Ian. We appreciate you calling in, and it's a great question. I believe, David, when you look at this, there's still so much for Jim Harbaugh to do. You didn't hire Jim Harbaugh to get you 12 games into a season. So there's a lot of winning and things that he hasn't had a chance to be able to prove yet, and playoff success and things like that. But if we're grading him only to this point, what he's been able to do with this team through 12 games, where would you put that number?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be really, really high, considering what they were last year, right? And I think that's what we have to directly base this off of is last year, the Chargers fired their head coach and their general manager before the season ended. Okay, that gives you a good enough indication of how bad things were last year, right? 5-12 season, got rid of the head coach, got rid of the general manager, and then had to go find the right guy and said, hey, I was going to go out there and I was going to make some serious changes, and I was going to go out there and I was going to be able to manifest that in the things that I did. And they definitely did that, okay? A complete 100%, 180, if you want, completely different organization from last year to this year. Now you have continuity at the top, and you have people that you believe in that are established winners that come from good organizations. Jim Harbaugh, obviously the track record. Joe Hortiz with the Ravens, winning track record. Aligning himself with people that are going to bring success to this organization. And so far, we're looking at an 8-4 record, and that is due in large part to Jim Harbaugh and his staff.
Yeah, I would go in a strong 96 out of 100. I mean, to me, there's only a couple of things.
I'm
at 95. I mean, so I there's only a couple of things. Like, I mean, I think you can question the OC hiring with Greg Roman and potentially hope he went with something more progressive than that. I think the only other thing missing is a marquee win. And I mean, 2 of the chances he had earlier in the season against the Steelers and the Chiefs, he had a banged up Justin Herbert and he was missing his top tackle. So hard to hold that against him too much is why is it such a hard, score. But like the thing is it was a no-brainer to me to go get Jim Harbaugh. That doesn't mean it didn't come with any risks. It didn't mean that Jim Harbaugh in the game hadn't necessarily passed him by, because being good in college doesn't always translate to the pros. Ask freaking Urban Meyer, right? Yeah. He's done it already, so he had the track record, but like we're talking about a dude that has a bunch of grown men making millions of dollars more than him singing for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow" in the locker room. Yeah. Like this team is heading in the most positive direction that I've ever seen, since we've been covering this team, for sure. Oh, yeah. It feels, sustainable, and it does feel like they have an identity. And even though the running game hasn't come, the great defense has come. And I think really the identity right now is winning, and the Chargers are winning 2/3 of their game. Can you imagine what we'd be saying if they were 4-8 right now? And with where they were at the start of the offseason, that was a realistic possibility. And I think a big part of getting Jim Harbaugh, and the other thing that came along with it, was you also landed a real general manager. A huge factor in bringing in Joe Hortiz, no matter what they say as far as that being separate. I don't believe that for a second. You put together a team that's going to double their win total from last season. You put together a legit team with a bunch of one-year deals that didn't mortgage the future to try to win right now. They're in such a healthy space going forward with tons of draft picks, tons of cap space, and they're 8-4 right now with the Band-Aids that they brought in. You nailed your first draft. Pro Bowl tackle, a wide receiver 1 for this team in Ladd McConkey, and 2 potential stud cornerbacks in the 5th round. 4 instant contributors in his first draft class, and huge impact free agents on one-year deals like J.K. Dobbins and Christian Fulton and Denzel Perryman. Will Dissly, a longer contract, but Will Dissly, Poona Ford, T.R. Tart made a trade for Elijah Molden. So that's the other added benefit, is you don't get Joe Hortiz, who had been with Baltimore for 26 years, without bringing in Jim Harbaugh, and he's been awesome.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question about it. I mean, they were a package deal for sure. Jim Harbaugh brings that cachet. He brings that kind of respect level, and so, when the Chargers reached out to get Joe Hortiz, he already kind of felt like he knew him, right? And then, obviously they had a little bit of a relationship there, but it's already shown that they have a beautiful relationship, and they've made some really, really strong decisions together before the season even really got started. As soon as they got in, they had to worry about, fixing a deficit that was $60 million in the hole. And they had to make some really tough decisions on whether they were going to trade or bring back Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Mike Williams, like really important, big, high quality players that, really important to the success of this team. They had to navigate that. And then they had to use their resources to be able to bring in guys that were, more of the boom or bust kind of category on the one-year deals. And overwhelmingly, when you look across the board, is this guy helping my team? I think, a good strong 8 out of 10, the answer would be yes. I mean, these moves have been fantastic. And yes, the draft, complete 1,000% home run. Grand slam there. You're getting a franchise right tackle, which the Chargers have cycled through tackles for the last decade. They've looked for somebody to replace Keenan Allen. Seems like they were able to do it maybe right away with Ladd McConkey. We'll see, right? Still got a lot of years to be able to put together. As close as you can
get with a rookie, for sure.
He's been fantastic. And the 2 corners, I think they might be the most impressive picks of them all, being able to grab those guys in the 5th round and have them playing high-quality football immediately. Hats off to Jim Harbaugh, Joe Hortiz, his staff. They have absolutely knocked it out of the park up to this point.
Absolutely they have, and you'll hear me tomorrow on the crossover with Locked On Chiefs as I dangled Ladd McConkey in front of them and said, you could have had this, but you went with Xavier Worthy instead. I think the other added benefit of getting Jim Harbaugh is you get him because he's a staff builder, and he put the staff together, especially the defensive side of things, that you wouldn't have got without him. I mean, he brings in a Jesse Minter who has the top scoring defense in the league. He gets you a Navarro Bowman because his relationship with him when he was a player. He gets you a Steve Klinkscale. He gets you a Mike Elston. All of those units are way, way outperforming. To a position, the Chargers are outperforming everything they did defensively last year. They're just a much better team. Offensively, like I said, you could have went more progressive than Greg Roman. That's just, but at the same time, Greg Roman runs a Jim Harbaugh-like offense. Like that is, at the end of the day, kind of what he wants to do. But having him put together that staff and knowing that he can re-put it together if some of these guys leave is one of the huge added benefits of what Jim Harbaugh brings as a franchise builder, as a culture changer, and he has checked off every single box that he's could up through 12 games. But we still have more to get into, including we know the offense has struggled, but has it been Justin Herbert's lack of aggressiveness that has put him there? I'm going to tell you right now, he's as aggressive as he's ever been. So we're going to talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you about Mint Mobile, because with big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with Mint Mobile. Bring any plan, bring your phone along with your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on a first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. I also need to tell you guys about Prize Picks, because it is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and it's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because unlike on other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And I'll make it very simple for you. If you guys want to get in on Prize Picks, this is how you can win easily. All you have to do is you can go Justin Herbert throwing for more than or less than 245.5 passing yards, and combine that with Ladd McConkey, if he plays, going for more or less than 68.5 receiving yards. If you hit it right on both of those, you win. And you can keep adding on to that and even win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And it's the best way to get action on most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. All you have to do, download the Prize Picks app today, use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. It's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you pay $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Dave, let's continue getting into this Chargers mailbag, because we got a lot of good questions and voicemails today. Thank you to all the everydayers who made us your first listen, and also those who hit us up today. We appreciate you guys. And this is an interesting one here, David. One I haven't heard a lot of, but it made me want to kind of think about it a little bit more when I heard it, because I do think Justin Herbert, one of the things about him is his aggressiveness, and he has been a kind of check down monster in the past, depending on what offense he was in. Nobody thought he was going deep enough when they were in the Joe Lombardi offense by any means. But is he being too conservative again this year?
Hey, this is Tyler calling from Nebraska. I just want to thank you guys for putting out great content every day. My question is this. We know Justin Herbert does a great job taking care of the football. This year he's taken it even to the next level. I just want to know if you guys think Justin Herbert's gotten too conservative throwing the football. I know the wide receiver room's struggling, but you mentioned yesterday he's taken a lot of coverage sacks, just not wanting to force the ball. Do you think he needs to start being more aggressive, or do we need to just rely on our defense and not turn over the ball? Love to hear your thoughts.
David, I know for me, I felt like he'd been pretty aggressive, but it's hard to say because he's thrown so much less than he has in years past. That has to be kind of factored into it. Do you think Justin Herbert's being maybe too conservative in this offense this year?
I can definitely understand why people would come to the conclusion that Justin Herbert's, not taking chances down the field, but the problem with that is the numbers just don't support that. Right now, the Chargers are 6th in the NFL in yards per pass attempt. 6th, okay? They're 9th in deep passing attempts. They're 4th in completed passes past 20 yards, 5th in deep yards, and Justin Herbert is tied with Jalen Hurts for the most deep touchdowns in the NFL this season. So Justin Herbert is not being risk averse. He is pushing the ball down the field. It just looks like it, or doesn't feel like it is as much, because he's not throwing the ball as much as you're used to him doing it.
Yeah, and I think that just percentage wise, I mean, this is the best he's ever been. And a lot of people look back to that rookie year, right? And everyone's like, he doesn't throw deep as much as he did in his rookie year. His rookie year, he ranked 24th in as far as what percentage of his throws were deep throws 20 plus yards down the field. He ranked 24th at 11.3%. This year, out of anyone who has 20 deep passing attempts, he has the 7th highest percentage of 20 plus yard passes in the league so far this year. He also has the highest passer rating in the NFL on deep balls at 132.8, which is crazy because they haven't had as much success on them in recent games, which is, I think, why it feels like maybe they haven't been as aggressive because they've been throwing it. Fortunately, a lot of those targets have been to Quentin Johnston, who hasn't been able to come through on it, or Josh Palmer, who hasn't been able to come through on it. And sometimes Ladd McConkey does come through on it, but that's just been what it is. But it was surprising to say, hey, 8th in adjusted completion percentage on his deep balls, highest passer rating in the league. And last year, 17th in deep ball percentage, 28th in total deep attempts in 2022. This is as aggressive as a Justin Herbert we've ever seen. He just needs some guys to be able to make the plays down the field because he's putting it on him. But let's get to this next one here, David, from Kyle on email, who says, do you think that, or this is from Twitter, Kyle says, do you think Herbert has been transcending outdated, predictable play designed by Greg Roman? In some games, he just can't. Or do you think offensive woes have been due to personnel deficiencies? David, is it as easy as putting it on one?
No, it's not. It's definitely a combination of the both. Justin Herbert, as we all know, can make some insane throws, and he does every single time he steps on the football field. He does something that makes you go, wow. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he's capable of doing. But he can't run routes for himself, right? He can't pass protect for himself. And so, he's doing the best he can with what he has. He's going to try to make it work. He can thread the needle. He can put it in the smallest of windows. But, if you're not getting separation, you're not getting separation. There's nothing that he can do about that. He's doing everything he can at his highest ability. And I do feel like he does, work out a structure and make plays that, are not exactly the way that Greg Roman designed it. And Justin Herbert is capable of doing that. Is he going to be able to do that all the time? No, of course not. He is human. As much as he's way more genetically gifted than all of us are combined, he is still of the human being creation.
Variety, yeah, for sure. Exactly. I mean, I think as far like Justin Herbert is absolutely transcending the scheme here and is overperformed with what the scheme is. Yeah. Big moments in the last game, the spacing was just terrible. Like you have a play where you have literally Ladd, Will, Disley, and Josh Palmer all within 5 yards of each other on a crucial third down of the game. You just can't have it. One of the sacks, right? You have, or look at the Quentin Johnston fade route that he ran, that he didn't try to go back through. Like Josh Palmer staying 3 yards away from him when that ball gets there. Like, in what world does that spacing kind of make sense? So there are some issues there, but then again, you look at what they have at their disposal personnel-wise. Which position groups on the Chargers offense would you say are, top half of the league as far as talent? Top half of the league. Tackle position, quarterback position.
Yeah.
That's it. Interior offensive line, no. Tight end, no. Wide receivers, no. Running backs, no, especially without J.K. Dobbins. You could argue with him, maybe they are, but nobody else is producing that room outside of J.K. Dobbins so far either. So it is definitely both. Greg Roman is part of the problem. The personnel is part of the problem. Still ahead of schedule, doing the most with what they have at this point. But let's think about this one from Just Me, who asked on Twitter, should Justin Herbert run more to supplement what the running game is right now? David, what do you think?
For me, yeah, the answer is yes. I definitely feel like they need to put the ball in his hands and design a couple of more design rushes. And also, this guy can do it. Like, let's not forget, like Justin Herbert is a freak athlete, 6'6", 240, and can outrun most people on the defense. Actually, this year, he has his career long as far as a rushing attempt in his season, in his career. 38 yards is his longest run to date. 59 carries, 212 yards, which is good for over 4 yards a carry, has 14 first downs and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So Justin Herbert is a supreme athlete. I do feel like, right now there's not a lot of people that are contributing to, the offense positively. Justin Herbert definitely is, and maybe it's time for him to do just a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it reminds me a lot about the Ladd McConkey conversation that we had last week, because one thing that you have when you start using people in ways maybe that you don't necessarily have to use them or using them more in situations is you have the chance of overexposure, right? In Ladd McConkey's case, he got a career high in targets. He also didn't finish the game on the field. and that is the risk that you run. So I think it's trying to find the fine line, because there is a gray area between what Justin Herbert's doing right now and what someone like a Josh Allen is doing. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can be a lot more than what he's doing now and less than having him, full throttle all the time and lowering his shoulder on dudes. But it does feel like they kind of need those 20 or 30 rushing yards from him every game right now.
Yeah.
And I do think if you start letting him keep some of those read options and start making teams, because like when they do those and he's handing it off and has a chance to keep it, nobody's staying with him ever, right? And we saw it on the 4th and 1 play where he kept himself in the QB power. But like, make them at least account for it, right? And hope that potentially opens up more for your run game. But there's not a lot of options right now, and there's not a lot of clear answers for this team, which begs the biggest question: who can they lean on with no J.K. Dobbins and a banged up Ladd McConkey? We're going to talk about that. And if it would be taboo for the Chargers to take a running back in the first round, Ashton Genty, anyone in the first round, we're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel, because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel also gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. That means even once the kickoff has happened, it doesn't mean you can't still bet on that game. And the great part about FanDuel is when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The line is out for this game, and the Chargers are 3.5-point underdogs. So if you like the Chargers plus 3.5, that could be your first $5 bet that gets you the $150 in bonus bets. But there's always so many things you can bet on. First half score, who scores first, whatever you're looking to bet on, you can do it with FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets, and all you have to do is win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. David, let's continue getting into this Chargers mailbag, because we still have a lot of great questions from you guys on the voicemail line at 323-524-7924, and those who hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. But we appreciate all of the everydayers, whether you asked a question or not. Thank you guys for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL, where they can give you an overview of everything that's going on in the NFL with 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman Rowland and Tony Wiggins in the barbershop, bringing on the local experts who cover their team every single day on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, let's get to another voicemail that we have here. Where are you at, Cap? Calling into the voicemail instead of getting his question in on Twitter. Let's hear what he has for us this week.
What's up, guys? My name is Chris, or Where You At, Cap on X. I got a question. With our 2 best skilled players in J.K. Dobbins being out and Ladd McConkey being banged up to this point, who can we lean and depend on to help Justin Herbert out as far as putting points on the board?
David, it's a great question, and there's not a lot of obvious answers. But when I was kind of racking my brain, who could you really trust? Who could legitimately be that guy? The guy I kept coming back to is Gus Edwards, and it's hard to trust that. I can't even say that for sure it can happen or just put a lot of faith in it. But when I'm looking around, like, I don't know if I can trust it to be QJ, right? Josh Palmer has gotten opportunities this year and hasn't really even lived up to what we've seen from him in the past. And what are you going to do? Ask Will Dissly to put on even more of a load than he's already carried for this team, where he's already shattered the expectations of himself as a receiver. I don't know if I can ask him to do that, David. So I think, to me, it comes down to the Gus bus.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly the easy answer is everybody has to elevate their game, right? Everyone has to pick up the slack to be able to, pick up the yards and the production that J.K. Dobbins and Ladd McConkey inevitably will provide you, right? So, who's going to be able to step up? I think they have to go to the guy who they envisioned, right? They're bringing in pretty much first in free agency on how they were going to deliver or execute their physical, brand of football that they wanted to bring in. The guy that said, hey, this is the guy I'm going to bring in to break away from that finesse kind of display. And I'm going to go out there and be physical, and that's Gus Edwards, right? Gus Edwards has to be the guy. You got to give him a bunch of carries, and you have to go out there and dominate the line of scrimmage like you want to. Like, that's what they've said from the very beginning. We want to own the line of scrimmage. We want to be physical. We want to beat our opponents into the ground. Well, it's time for your hammer to show up and start hammering people into the ground and running them over and taking their will to play away from them. That's what Gus Edwards is capable of doing I hope that we get to see that version of him this year.
And I think the thing about Gus Edwards is he's quietly been pretty good over his last 4 games. I mean, since he's come back from injured reserve, 3 out of the 4 games, he's averaged 4.5 yards per carry or more. He does have the one stinker 7 for 9 in the Ravens game. But every other game besides that, he's been pretty good, actually. And I think you kind of have to see what it looks like if you give him 15 plus carries, because we know that's when he's at his best, when he has a chance to wear down a defense. I'll talk about that with the Locked On Chiefs tomorrow, because it's like if you're looking for a game plan, you'd think, hey, in the cold, in December, in Arrowhead, I wouldn't want to be tackling Gus Edwards 15 times in a game, I promise you. But you have to put the investment in on the front end, and you have to stick with it in the back end. So I'm not even saying it's a great option, but when you're looking around and you're looking at, Gus Edwards on a 2-year contract, and with how much better J.K. Dobbins has been, this is his chance. This is his opportunity to have the spotlight and be the bell cow that he thought he was going to be when he first signed with the Chargers. So give him that chance to do it. But we do have an email here from Nick C. in Santa Maria who says, during the Falcons game, it was clear to me what a star running back looks like. Robinson reminded me of the butt-whooping Adrian Peterson of the Vikings handed us so many years ago. I'll never forget that game. Is drafting a star running back like an Ashton Jeanty from Buffalo in the first round, or from Boise State in the first round of the draft. Be wild to think about. Is the running back position at a premium in the NFL because of Harbaugh? Teams like the Lions, Ravens, and Eagles are prime examples. I love the show, guys. Thanks. It's a great question, Nixie, because I think taking or expending the resources on a top running back for every team isn't the right answer. But for certain teams, like you've seen with the Lions and Jahmyr Gibbs, like you've seen from these other teams that went and got high-priced free agents like a Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, how much that is done for those offenses and taking them to the next level. And it does feel like for a Jim Harbaugh team, it's not that crazy to think about a first-round running back.
Yeah, I think under any of the first-time head coaches and under Tom Telesco, there's no chance, other than obviously the time that he took Melvin Gordon. Right?
Yeah,
so
right.
we have to talk about that. But after that, that's never happened. I feel like with this front office here, with Jim Harbaugh and how he wants to play football, and Joe Hortiz and how they're aligned in that vision, the possibility of taking a running back in the first round is a lot higher than it was before, in my opinion. And there are several examples, just like the guys that you mentioned, recently, of guys being taken in the first round that have been productive. Josh Jacobs in 2019, Najee Harris in 2021, right? Obviously, the other guys that you mentioned, there are a couple of recent examples of guys being able to prove their worth and get, that production, that elite level of production that you really need if you are going to take somebody that early.
One thing is like at one point we had our hopes up that with the Quentin Johnston pick, the Chargers were going to get Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
So we thought that was the right answer in that year. And I think the other thing you're hoping is that it's a pretty late first round pick, which changes the math a little bit. This is supposedly a very good running back draft. Do you need to spend a first round pick on a running back to get that kind of production? Who's to say right now, right? But it does feel like, hey, you add an Ashton Jeanty to this team, and he is what he's been in college so far.
2,200 yards,
giving Justin Herbert
touchdowns?
Someone to lean on. That's what someone to lean on looks like. We're taking some of the load away. Chargers definitively 1 out of 3 on their first round running backs. They've taken quite a few. For their last 2. The one they hit on LaDainian Tomlinson with the 5th overall pick, and it wouldn't potentially cost that for Ashton Jeanty. And at some point in the offseason, I'm going to be banging my head against my laptop screen, yelling at the Chargers to make sure they take Ashton Jeanty. Just bookmark that right now. But we do have a Thier calling in because, hey, running back's not the only need in the offseason. Tight end is too. And how can they address it? There's a couple different ways they could go about it.
Daniel, David, I love you, my boys. This is Thier. David, I got a question. If you Joe Hortiz and you need a pass-catching tight end, would you trade a third-round pick to Atlanta for Kyle Pitts while he's under contract, or would you draft one in the second round? Let me get your thoughts. Thank you, my bro.
David Athier has a question. Do you have an answer?
I do have an answer. For me personally, obviously there's no secret that the Chargers need a better pass-catching tight end, but I'm not a believer in spending draft capital as far as a trade is concerned to pick up a tight end. So, Kyle Pitts was great. He had 1,000-yard receiving season. He's dropped precipitously since that point.
So 1 year with Matt Ryan, right? And
that's it. Yeah, and then the production has not got anywhere close to that. So I just also feel like with the money that would have to be invested, I am much more apt to take a tight end in the draft than I am going out there either signing one or trading for one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this right now. When it comes to how the Chargers want to procure weapons and upgrade this offense, follow any avenue that you want and explore every avenue to do it. I do think that for me, I would lean towards taking a second round pick. I would lean towards taking one in the draft and letting him in tandem with Will Dissly come up at whatever speed that has to be, because not everyone's going to kind of assert themselves as quickly as a Brock Bowers or a Sam Laporta last year, whoever that is. If you get a Colson Loveland in the second round or something like that, yeah, I think you jump on it. I think the thing about Kyle Pitts is, can you bank on him? Yeah, like there's been some effort questions with him as well. A trade likely comes with an extension as he'd be on his 5th-year option. How much are you willing to pay for him? Are you going to just take the $10 million base salary and just pay him that for a 1-year rental? I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting. I would love to see it, but I'm just not sure I'd put a 3rd-round pick on it. If it's a later pick, it does seem like he's falling out of favor there, at least over the last few games. Maybe I could definitely get on board with that. Maybe I could definitely get on board with sending a day 3 pick for a Kyle Pitts, sure, as a project.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think there has to be an investment in the long term and bringing someone young in here, bringing someone in that fits what Jim Harbaugh and right now Greg Roman want to do and this physical offense wants to be, and letting them grow into it, because you know that you have Will Dissly under contract for the next 2 seasons. But Daniel is making his 2nd appearance on the crossover episode as I try to pay David back for doing so many crossovers for me. So make sure you guys are back here, because it feels like the Chargers have a chance to get that statement win this weekend. I hope they can take advantage of it, because the Chiefs are vulnerable right now. And I'm going to tell that to Ryan Tracy tomorrow when we talk on the Locked On Chiefs, Locked On Chargers crossover episode. To make sure you guys don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding us on all of our social media. You can find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, on our Twitter, like I said before, at Locked On LIC, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can hit me up on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David at Dro Talk SD. Getting pretty pumped up for this game this weekend. A chance for a marquee win, which is one of the only few things that Jim Harbaugh does not have on his first-year resume so far, and I can't wait to watch it. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for this all-important crossover episode. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.